There is something almost impossible about the morning after your heart breaks. The same sun rises, the same birds sing outside your window, the same kettle whistles in the kitchen. The world behaves as if nothing happened, but inside you, an entire season has ended. You sit at the edge of your bed, staring at a message you'll never send. You replay conversations that no longer exist. You tell yourself that this time you won't hope anymore. This time you'll build stronger walls. This time, you'll never let your heart wander into another story. And somehow, weeks later, you find yourself smiling at a stranger, laughing at a joke, imagining a future you once believed had disappeared. Have you ever noticed how hope keeps returning like the morning, no matter how many nights have tried to convince it not to? I wonder why the heart keeps planting flowers in soil where it remembers growing thorns. Why, after everything we've lost, does a quiet part of us still whisper, maybe? Why does hope survive, even after heartbreak? Imagine a rainy evening. The streets shimmer beneath yellow streetlights. Cars pass with soft splashes against the wet pavement. People hurry home beneath umbrellas while tiny rivers race along the edge of the sidewalk. You stop outside a cafe, not because you're hungry, because you remember. You remember sitting beside someone at the corner table, tracing circles around a warm coffee cup while talking about places you'd visit together someday. The cafe hasn't changed. The chairs are still there. The windows still fog up from the warmth inside. Someone else is laughing in the seat where your memories still live. For a moment, time folds in on itself. Your hand almost reaches for a phone that no longer belongs in your story. Then you quietly put it back into your pocket. Sometimes heartbreak isn't loud. Sometimes it's passing your favorite song without pressing play. Sometimes it's walking a different route just to avoid one familiar street. Sometimes it's standing in the grocery store, reaching for the same cereal they loved, before remembering they're no longer coming home. Have you ever noticed how memories hide inside ordinary things? A scent, a season, an old hoodie hanging behind the bedroom door, a movie you can never watch the same way again? At night, your room feels larger than it used to. The clock ticks a little louder. The empty side of the bed seems to hold its own kind of silence. Outside, rain taps gently against the window. Inside, your thoughts drift through old conversations, wondering whether one different sentence could have changed the ending. And yet, the next morning, almost without realizing it, you open the curtains. You let the light in. Maybe hope isn't something we choose. Maybe it's something that quietly chooses us. Think about a tree standing through winter. Its branches look lifeless. Its leaves are gone. Snow covers everything it once proudly displayed. If someone had never seen spring before, they might believe the tree had given up forever. But deep beneath the frozen ground, something invisible is still alive. Not loudly, not dramatically, simply waiting. I wonder if our hearts are like that. From the outside, heartbreak looks like an ending. Inside, something continues growing where no one can see it. Maybe that's why we keep believing in people, even after someone betrayed us. Not because we've forgotten the pain, but because love itself was never the thing that hurt us. Have you ever noticed that we rarely regret loving someone? We regret the goodbye. We regret the silence that followed. We regret the future we imagined but never reached. The love itself often remains strangely beautiful. Maybe because love leaves fingerprints instead of scars. It changes how we notice sunsets, how we hear music, how certain places suddenly feel sacred. Even after someone leaves, the parts of ourselves that learned how to love don't disappear with them. Sometimes I think heartbreak is like living in a house after a fire. Some rooms are gone. Some walls are blackened with smoke. Photographs have turned into ashes. You spend months staring at what was lost. Until one afternoon, a tiny green plant pushes through a crack in the floor. You didn't plant it. You weren't ready for it. But there it is, quietly insisting that life still remembers your address. Maybe hope is exactly like that. Not loud enough to erase grief, just persistent enough to grow beside it. We often imagine healing as forgetting, but perhaps healing is remembering without drowning. Perhaps it's carrying old photographs without expecting them to become today's reality. Sometimes I wonder if the heart keeps hoping because it doesn't measure life by endings. It measures life by possibilities. Children understand this instinctively. Watch them build a sandcastle. A wave comes. Everything disappears. For a brief second, they look at the empty shore. Then, they kneel down and begin building again. Not because they believe the ocean has changed, because creating something beautiful was always worth the risk. Somewhere along the way, adulthood teaches us to protect ourselves from disappointment. We stop writing the message. We stop taking the chance. We stop saying what we really feel. We call it being realistic. But maybe, sometimes realism is simply fear wearing a wiser face. What if hope survives heartbreak because hope was never attached to one person? What if it was attached to the part of you that still believes life can surprise you? Imagine carrying a lantern through a long forest at night. Someone you loved was walking beside you, holding the lantern. Then one day, they left. For months, you believed they had taken the light with them, so you stood still in the darkness. Until one quiet evening, you noticed something impossible. The lantern was still glowing. It had never belonged to them. They only carried it for a while. The light was always yours. Maybe that's the deepest misunderstanding heartbreak leaves behind. It convinces us that someone else was the source of our hope, when perhaps they were simply the mirror that reflected it. The dreams you dreamed, the kindness you gave, the laughter you shared, the courage you found to trust. Those things came from within you. Another person awakened them, but they did not create them. Have you ever noticed that after enough time passes, what you miss changes? At first, you miss their voice. Then you miss who you were beside them. And finally, you begin discovering who you are without needing them to complete the sentence. That isn't forgetting. It's remembering yourself. Maybe hope survives because it knows something our sadness temporarily forgets. That the heart was never designed to become a museum dedicated to one ending. It was always meant to remain a home where new seasons could quietly arrive. One day, you'll pass that cafe again. The rain may still fall. The windows may still glow with warm light. Someone else will still be sitting at the corner table. But this time, you'll pause for a different reason. Not because you're trapped in yesterday, but because you'll realize the memory no longer asks you to stay there. It simply smiles as you continue walking. Maybe that's what hope has been trying to teach us all along. Not to erase heartbreak, not to outrun it, but to carry it gently enough that both sorrow and possibility can exist in the same heart. Perhaps every sunrise after loss is quietly asking the same question. Are you ready to let the light touch you again? You don't have to answer immediately. Hope is patient. It has always been patient. If these reflections felt close to your own story, perhaps it's because heartbreak is one of the few languages every human eventually learns to speak. And somehow, despite all its different forms, hope keeps translating that pain into another chance to love, to dream, and to begin again. So I'd love to ask you something. What is one small moment that made you realize hope had quietly returned after your own heartbreak? If you enjoy exploring life's deepest questions through cinematic storytelling and honest reflection, the questions we carry silently but rarely speak aloud, consider subscribing and joining us for the next conversation. Until we meet again, may the light you thought you lost remind you that it has been waiting inside you all along.